Hey, VS Holmes here. I've been gearing up for the release of Madness and Gods, which is the third in my Reforged series, and I am so excited it comes out on the 14th. This book has been 10 years in the making, give or take, and the paperbacks are in transit, but I am not a patient person, so I decided to read you an excerpt today. It's a scene from sort of the central part of the book, and it's a reunion scene between a couple different characters, and you might recognize them if you've read the first two books. So, the 46th day of 1272, Marl Black, Glasden province of Athrolan. Bitter wind buffeted the manor, whipping the mourning flags. Daymir sank deeper into his chair. Vaulted ceilings were beautiful, but hardly homey. Even with a roaring fire, it was cold. He brushed dry fingers down the page of his book. Despite reading the words half a dozen times, he did not comprehend them. Solitude may have become him in his youth, but now it chafed. Even for the mountains, a squallen was unexpected. He slapped the book on the table and stalked to the window. Outside, the world was white. Ice glittered in the churning sky. Fog swallowed everything beyond the head of the road. If this isn't a metaphor for Athrolan's current state, I don't know what is. Glass rattled under a blast of wind. Movement caught his eye as he retreated to the fire. A shadow moved through the whipping wind. It was faint, but approached up the road. Daymir's eyes narrowed. His servants sheltered in the town below, and he doubted he would see any before the storm retreated. Last winter, he went an entire month without news. 15 minutes passed before the shadow reached his courtyard. By then it formed the shape of two riders. He threw on his cloak, lacing it tightly before he yanked the door open. Snow spilled into the foyer. The riders dismounted. The shorter of the two raised a hand in response to his. "The stable's unlocked!" His battle voice pierced the wind, and the visitors led their mounts inside. Unlocking the door between the manor and its stables, he headed to the kitchen, shedding his cloak as he did. Pots of gravy and sweet sauce hung over the fire to heat, and Daymir collected bread and cold meat on a platter. Boots stomping snow from their tread interrupted his preparation of tea. The hall was quiet as his visitors set aside packs and outdoor attire. Daymir stepped out of the kitchen as one rider rounded the corner. He froze. Fates. Alea's eyes still sent ice sliding down his spine. Lines mapped the history of her expressions, but her face was as striking as their last meeting 20 years before. "Good evening to you, too." She offered a tired smile. "Arman will be in once the horses are settled. We both thought it best if I greeted you alone." "Indeed." "The Dhoah Laen is in stocking feet in my foyer." "Where have you been? And Thorian would have a fit if he knew you were here. Fates, I might have a fit once I recover from the shock." He stopped himself from rambling further and resorted to simply staring. Her dark brows arched as she waited for him to fall quiet. "I'll gladly answer everything. Might we stay a night, maybe two?" "Of course. You're likely to be trapped here with this weather, though." "We made it here. I'm confident we'll make it out." The door to the stable shut softly, and Daymir heard a deep sigh as boots were shucked off. "Alea?" "We're in the hall," she answered, without taking her eyes from Daymir's. The kettle began to squeal. "I've completely forgotten my manners. I set out some food and tea. It's not a feast, but it'll do until morning." Alea followed him into the kitchen, and when he turned, Arman stood in the doorway as well. The Rakos' furiosity was now an ember under steady might. His uncertainty was gone. Arman offered him an arm, which Daymir took. "You grew older." Daymir raised a hand in defense of the obvious comment. "I know, we all did. I just never expected you to turn gray, or perhaps I never thought I'd see it." "We're as much human as we are anything else," Alea smiled. "Besides, now no one can say they thought the Dhoah Laen would be older." Daymir snorted. "Perhaps." He took the pots from their hooks and nestled them into their places on the platter. "As much as I was raised noble, and should make small talk well into the evening, I find I can't help but ask why you're here." Arman looked down. "We started writing months ago. It seems we missed much being out of the world, and we need to be caught up." So it's not for my witty company. Daymir shoved off from the counter with a sigh. Well, let me bring these into my study, and I'll set a fire. There's room at the top of the stairs, beside the black hall table. It should be warm enough. We can talk once you've settled your things there. Quiet steps muted their conversation as they climbed up to the room. His shaking hands rattled on the teapot. He didn't know whether the tremors were from fear or excitement. He sat in a chair, then rose to stand by the door, and finally decided to wait by the fire. No visitors for weeks, and then the queen passes, followed by a visit from the most powerful creatures in the world. His mind tripped over the thought. Memories were dim more often than late, even erasing them entirely on occasion. He was happy that, at least for the evening, his mind was clear. You've got a lovely place here. Arman's voice rumbled from the doorway. He moved through the stacks of books, glancing at their titles. Yes, for a prison it's quite lovely. Daymir looked down. It wouldn't do to alienate his guests, however unexpected. Sorry, I've been a bit restless. Arman's brows rose. I'm surprised you haven't returned to the city. Daymir's gaze inched over the other man's face. He had no idea what Arman knew of Athrolan's current affairs. Exiled is exiled. Perhaps news should wait until the Dhoah Laen joins us? Perhaps. Arman's mouth curled with tempered mirth. It's been a while since we answered to those titles. I'm not sure which is more uncomfortable. The fact that we forgot them so easily, or that they still fit. He gestured to the seat. May I? The wayhouses were full and we've slept on benches more than beds. Of course. Daymir took a seat across from him. The road's busy. Until we came farther north, the closer we get to the capital, the fewer travelers we've seen. Alea breezed in. This looks lovely, thank you. She collapsed into the third chair with a sigh. You're taking this in stride? I'd almost believe you expected us. I've had my share of oddities lately, Daymir explained. Before we dive into dark news, may I ask where you've been for the past 20 years? 19 years and 4 months. Alia's voice was just above a whisper, her eyes fixed on the untouched plate. I've counted 2, you know. So I hope you enjoyed that little glimpse into Madness and Gods, and don't forget that the pre-order is live, and you can find it at books2read, that's the number 2.com/madnessandgods. And if you send me a screenshot of your receipt to madnessandgods@gmail.com, I'll send you the director's cut for free. And that includes character sketches, playlists, and a deleted scene from like 3 drafts ago. Edited, I promise. So again, I hope you enjoyed, and I hope you enjoy the rest of the book too. Thanks.